When you seize these smuggled goods, you talk about destroying them in order to deter those who want to continue the acts of smuggling. But you do a public show of destroying these goods, but you do not do a public show of the persecution of these smugglers. How would that stop them if they don't? Because there are reports out there that the smugglers are never really persecuted. I mean, they settle the relevant agencies and they move out with their business.
Yes, I think the smuggle, when you just seize and you dispose of, that is not enough. And that is why the Nigerian Customs Service had made it a point of duty that there should be no seizure without a defendant. And when you get this defendant, you do your own thorough investigation and you send them to the Federal High Court and prosecute them. If such smugglers are prosecuted and sent to jail, that will serve as a better deterrent. So the disposal of seized goods is not enough.
Okay.
The most important thing is to send them to jail. When you do that, that is the best deterrent.
How many have you jailed? How many have been jailed so far?
So many have been jailed. You know, on every day we make seizures. Every day we take suspects to the court. Every day we do get convictions. From time to time we have the statistics. Roughly, this month alone, I think we had a conviction of over 10 from the various areas.
I'll have to crave your indulgence and take you to a topic, you know, which might not be close to this, but it has to do with the topic of, you know, people who are being checked at the airports. We do know that our customs officials are also present at the airport. Some people still think that it's a bit crude. You can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're still doing a manual check of goods and properties that are leaving this country. In other words, if you're traveling, you still have to open your suitcase and then, you know, they're filling around your bag to see if you have. One would think that by now we would have invested in equipment that would, you know, be able to scan bags and, you know, send them through. Do you think that, are we investing in the right direction? Is this something that the Nigerian Customs is also asking for?
Well, I know that in the ports, we have scanners that we use to scan goods that come into this country. Also, in the airports and the cargo section, we have scanners that we use for scanning of goods that come in unaccompanied. But I have also seen it practically in the airports, particularly here in Murtala Mohammed Airport. There are scanners that you pass your bags through when you are traveling out of this country. This is not enough because we sincerely believe that we should have more of these things, and I sincerely believe the authorities are looking into this.
All right, could you then tell us, pardon me, because, I mean, if you talk about smuggling, checking at the airports, ensuring that things are done properly across our borders, is the customs working with other countries by cooperation, either to share intelligence before some of these goods land on the shores of this country or even off the shore, some kind of collaboration with other countries? Do we have any of them, or do we plan to have any of them?
Yes, the Nigerian Customs Service of recent has been the darling of many other customs administrations. Just recently, we have signed memorandum of understanding with the South African Customs. We have done that with the Argentine Customs. We have done that with the American Customs and several other customs. The Japanese Customs are also on the line. These memorandum of understandings had provisions for exchange of information and intelligence. And severally, we had received important information from our sister administrations, and we have also always resulted into spectacular seizures and interdiction.
What routes would you consider most problematic for you?
Well, the greatest problems of the Nigerian Customs Service, I sincerely believe, is the issue of funding and also provision of some of the our working implements. The current administration has done so much. In fact, the current administration has done what has never been done before, but we are not there yet. We still need more of working implements. We still need more of welfare for our officers. We need more of barracks in the borders. We still need more communication gadgets. Like you said in your earlier observation, that the borders are porous. But the borders are porous because we don't have the necessary surveillance gadgets that we need to do surveillance of the borders. Even the borders of countries that are so-called developed, they have these gadgets that aid their agencies in the borders. So we in Nigeria will also need to have these gadgets, surveillance gadgets, CCTV cameras, all of our borders that will aid our agencies and that will lead to better performance.
But it doesn't, I mean, would you be looking at specific routes where, you know, the acquiring these gadgets would have the greatest impact?
Yes, we will look at areas that are most serious because the Nigerian Customs Service knows most of these areas where a lot of trading or illegal trading take place. So when we do have some of these things, we will concentrate our effort in these areas and make sure that we improve on our performance.
Just quickly again, concerning, you know, the airport, the scanning at the airports, do you think that our machines are powerful enough to see what they ought to see? Because one would say, it's curious that it would seem that we're still the only country that does a manual search when goods come in and when goods are going out. Are we still the only country, or is that the norm in other places as well?
Well, I know that in the developed countries, most of this is done by scanners. But here, like I said, there are quite a few scanners here and there, but that is not enough. Once we could have scanners all over the place, I think that would be better for all the agencies working in the airport. You have to know also that those people that commit crime are highly ingenious. And it is sometimes very, very necessary for security agencies also to go the extra mile by checking some of these lockages to ensure that some of the things they hide in their bags are fished out. But for us in the customs, our major interest is in goods coming into the country. We are also interested in those going out. But most of the searches, I think, I sincerely believe in the airports are conducted by some of our agencies and NDLA and co that, you know, people that deal in some of these illicit things go the extra mile to try and hide it as much as they can. So it is necessary for agencies to do the best they can to make sure that they fish out some of these illicit items.
Okay, you talked about the need for more equipment and funding for the customs service and indeed the border agencies. But one wonders, in other climes where they have all the equipment, like the US and the UK, where they have all the equipment they need to monitor the borders and surveillance and all that, they still have issues with smuggling and all of that. What will make the difference in Nigeria?
Yes, I have observed this earlier, that even the most developed countries have not succeeded in stamping out smuggling completely. But you will agree with me that since the taking over of the leadership of customs by our President Controller General Alhaji Abdullahi Indediko, there had been significant improvement in terms of our anti-smuggling activities. Not just in the quantity, but also in the value of the seizures that we have been doing. I sincerely believe that with more equipment, and more working implements, the Nigerian Customs Service would deliver. And the Nigerian Customs Service will improve on what we are currently doing. I'm sure you have seen some of the spectacular seizures that we're making around recently. With all the necessary implements that we require, I can assure you that the Nigerian Customs Service will do better than this. I cannot tell you that the Nigerian Customs Service will stamp out corruption completely. This is not possible. Like you rightly observed, even the United States of America has not been able to do it. But the Nigerian Customs Service will also do our best to minimize smuggling or to bring smuggling to its barest minimum, like we are doing now.
Okay, you talked about some seizures, spectacular seizures you've been doing, but there's a school of thought that believes that all your seizures are mostly on turkeys and frozen chickens. What about vehicles and other things? You're just seizing food items, rice, turkeys, frozen chicken. Are there other things that you seize?
But I think you just talked about our seizure of ammunition in Ibadan recently. We do a lot of other seizures, not just rice and turkey. We seize vehicles that come in illegally. We seize arms and ammunition. We seize a lot of goods that are on customs. Seizures are not just on what we call prohibitions alone. We also seize goods that are on customs. You know, a lot of smugglers bring in illegal goods in order to make profit. So what they do is they try to evade duty. When you evade duty, you are contravening the customs law, and anything that contravenes the customs law is subject to seizure.
All right. What about your working relationships with other border agencies like the immigration? How well do you work together? Do you share information?
Yes, we share information with our sisters in the borders. From time to time, we exchange ideas. We have regular meetings, like in Seme border. They have regular meetings between the various security agencies. They do in most of the border areas. And what is discussed in these various areas are common problems, common issues that affect all of us. And like I told you, the issue of arms and ammunition is primarily a police responsibility. But we in the customs also seize arms and ammunition. We administer and hand over to the police. The police too, from time to time, when they make seizures of arms or of smuggled goods, they hand over to the Nigerian Customs Service. So the border community, various agencies of the borders, work hand in hand in order to ensure that the laws of federations are obeyed by the various people who traverse the borders.
Do you also work with
between the Nigerian Customs Service and the various agencies at the borders is fantastic. I tell you, from time to time, when the Nigerian Customs officials come into trouble, from time to time, they call on the Nigerian police to assist them, and sometimes even the military. And they come handy, and they have always assisted the Nigerian Customs Service to achieve their aim.
How well do you work with the customs or agencies from the neighboring countries?
You have to remember that the Controller General of the Nigerian Customs Service is the Vice President of the WCO region, which is comprises of West and Central African region. And recently we have been synergizing with our colleagues in the West and the Central African sub-region. From time to time we meet, we hold discussions, and we strategize about how to carry out our various functions. When we have problems, we discuss it and look for common solutions.